Our tomato garden here at Witch Hollow Homestead was bountiful this past summer, and the tomatoes really piled up quickly. So I decided I was going to make a large batch of salsa. I thought this would be a great chance to share that salsa recipe with you. This is going to be a water bath canning recipe, and it's really easy and flexible so that you can add any flavors you like. I filmed this back in August, and it's now January when I'm finally getting to edit it, but the harvest season was really hectic and busy, and we had other things going on as well that just made it difficult for me to get to some of these videos. So sorry about how long it took for me to get this out, but I hope you enjoy. I am starting with a bunch of poblano peppers that were from our garden. I chopped them up and I threw them in a freezer bag and froze them because I knew I was going to want to use them for salsa or other recipes later in the year. When it comes to the tomatoes, you can use any kind of tomatoes you like. Here I'm going to be using the heirloom tomatoes from our garden, which are Brandywine and the Lemon Boys. I'm just going to cut the core out, and then I'm going to chop them up into bite-sized pieces. I don't want them fully mashed because I like salsa that's pretty chunky, so I do want to leave some decent-sized chunks in this. I don't know how many cups of tomatoes this is, just because I didn't really measure or anything. I just kind of cut them up and started throwing them in the pot. But I can tell you that all the tomatoes you saw me washing, I did cut up and put in this pot. This would also be a great time to add any garlic or onion or any fruit that you also like to put in your salsa. If I could have gotten a hold of some mango at this time, I would have put mango in the salsa. Huge fan of mango salsa, but I couldn't, and that's okay. This is still delicious. Once I had all the tomatoes chopped, I'm adding the pot to the burner, and I'm just giving it a nice mix to incorporate all the ingredients. I'm now going to add 1.5 to 2 cups of white distilled vinegar into the mix. I'm also adding a bunch of cilantro in here, and this is cilantro from our garden that I harvested, chopped up fresh, and then I put it in the freezer because it preserves the taste. And now I'm just adding it in. I'm also adding some ground cumin in. Once the tomatoes start releasing their juices and it begins to bubble, I added in a little bit of honey. Like I had mentioned, I wanted to use mango, but I didn't have any, so a little bit of honey is perfect. I'm going to continue to let this cook for about another 20 minutes or so. Like I said, I want the chunks to be a little solid. I don't want it to be all mush. So I tend to not cook it for more than 45 minutes. I am removing my jars from the water bath canner. They were sitting there getting all nice and toasty and sterilized. So now I'm going to take these out, and I am going to hot pack the jars. To each jar, I am adding 1 teaspoon of lime juice and 1/2 teaspoon of pink Himalayan salt. have been doing canning now for 4 years, going on 5. And something I learned this past year was that if your rings have any rust on them whatsoever, or any dents, no matter how tiny, it can prevent your jars from sealing. I have a lot of old lids, and I didn't realize that, but I had noticed that several of my jars were not sealing, and come to find out, it was my rings. So I made sure that I purchased new rings, and I haven't had an issue of jars sealing since. So I thought I would share that just in case someone else doesn't know it. I didn't know it, no one had ever mentioned it to me, and it'll just make your canning process a little bit easier. We're going to do finger tight and place these in our water bath canner. Once I've added all the jars, I am getting hot tap water, and I am pouring that over the jars. Since the canner was already warm, I don't want to be adding cool water, and then that can fluctuate the temperature with the jars and the contents, and jars can crack. So I want to make sure I use hot water. We're going to bring this water up to a boil, and then we're going to process these jars for 15 minutes. Once the 15 minutes are up, we're going to let them cool down for 5, and then we can remove them. Once your jars are ready to be removed, we're going to place them on a towel, and we're going to let them sit for 24 hours. I love this recipe because it's so quick and so easy to do that it doesn't take up the whole day, which is great. Thank you so much for joining me today at Witch Hollow Homestead. I hope you found this video helpful and inspiring. Happy homesteading!